using container evolution. Okay, so I'll give you some shocking news also in Docker after 1 month in Kubernetes session. So let's learn till that. So client, okay, server and container, and kernel create all this container which I was discussing here. This container, this container, this container. The container is nothing but a isolated environment powered by kernel. Okay, so this part we call it Docker engine. Okay, this two part we call it engine. So when you install it, typically we install the Docker engine. Okay, so this is the architecture. What happens? So now, what are the Docker components? Docker components. So Docker components, we have one that is called Docker engine. This has to be installed. Actually, I was doing it in the background, and I did it. Let me show you the steps. This is a tutorial, and here you have a method 1, method 2, method 3. Whichever way you are comfortable, you can do that. Okay, so this is done, and I'm installing it. So this installation is going on. Let it happen in the background. I'll come back to that. So yeah, this installations. Just I'll just copy the URL in the notes. Okay, so there are 4 components of Docker. That's one is Docker engine, which has to be installed. So I will install the Docker client and Docker server just now. What is the second component? Second component is Docker image. Now the question is, what is a Docker image? So guys, VM image, what you have, you know that, correct? Now VM image, all of you. Hello. VM
Yes.
image, the one which you created. You created a VM on AWS. Yesterday I showed you. You created a VM using VirtualBox. Last week I showed you. You created a VM using the Vagrant also. Boxes I showed you. So now in the VM, what it contains? It contains the boot file system. Boot file system kernel. Each VM your kernel, and then it contains root file system also. Okay, and then it contains the user file system also, and then it contain what? Applications also. So boot file system is like a kernel. Let me put it up so you'll remember that. So kernel. Now root file system means here there's a 2 kernel in the whole world, guys. Linux kernel and Windows kernel. The root file system means Ubuntu is a root file system. Actually, we were calling earlier operating system. Now in container we call it root file system. Fedora, these all are root file system, guys. Okay, and they use the Linux kernel or Windows kernel. Windows 11, Windows 12 is basically root file system, and this Windows 11 is based on the Windows kernel. Okay, so what is the user file system? Let me show you. Root file system I have shown you already, starting with the root or C drive, my computer and all. So user file system, you want to see that? Let me show you here. This is the C user Rajesh. These are the root file system. I mean, sorry, user file system. Don't you have seen it? Every day you work on it, user file system. Every users will have their own user file system. Correct now?
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah. So what is the application file system? So application file system means typically I install all of my application in my secret location, which I'm going to reveal now, and that's called C drive. Tools. Here so many application I installed it. One of the applications just there's a Maven. This is a file system for Maven. So when you look at the VM, actually VM, so VM has all this kind of file system. So then the question was not a VM image. Okay, the question was not of the VM image, it was for the Docker image. So Docker image will contain what? Docker image contain root file system, user file system, and app file system. That's all. So these are the 3 types of images which will be kept by Docker image. So that's the reason Docker image will have no kernel. So now the question is, what is the Docker image is being used for? From where will you get the Docker image? So here, guys, one image, you can get as many containers, For example, from one VM image, can't you create a multiple VM? Same way, one image, many containers. Make sense, guys, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now the question is from where we'll download this Docker image. We'll create also the Docker image, but from where we'll download the Docker image. So you will download from the Docker registry. So there's so many registries we have, public and private. One of the very popular registries is hub.docker.com, Google registry, Azure registry. You can create a private registry using registry or Artifactory or Nexus. So many software are there. Okay, so this is the Docker registry. So can we go to that place and see that what exactly we have? That's internet. Am I audible, all of you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Just a second. Internet is not responding. See that. So this is the hub.docker.com. How many images you have? Look at this. So some of the popular image MongoDB, Nginx, Node, Redis, Postgres, Python, Ubuntu. See here, Memcache, MySQL, BoogieBox, Traffic, MariaDB. More than 1 lakh images you have here. So plenty of it. So yes, third component of the Docker, if you want to use it, Docker registry. And the last one, which is Docker containers. Docker container. So here, when you run, I repeat, run an image, you get one container. Simple. So when you run image, what happens? Understand that when you run image, Docker, look at my screen here. So here, Docker client, using that you say, hey, you run this command, Docker run and httpd. Httpd is image name, okay? So when you run this command is sent to the Docker client. Docker client check that this command is good or not. After that is sent to the Docker server. Docker server. Docker server check that this image is there in the local or not. Okay, I'm not writing it, but I'm just telling you. So this server will check this image is there in the local machine or not where Docker is installed. If it's there, then wonderful. If it's not there, download from hub automatically here, automatically. And then after that, this request is sent to the container D. Container D will send to the kernel. Kernel will create one user, one network, one network, one tree, one pit tree, and one user network, MLT mount root file system. This root file system will create from image actually. Okay, and after that attach this user with all these resources, and this whole things become one container. Make sense, all of you? So whatever you have an image, you will see running that container. So you, let's say if you have image HTTP, the Apache running will be there. If you have image Ubuntu, Ubuntu will be there. Python will be there. Postgres will be there, and so on. So these are the four components which we have. Out of which, let me see if the Docker is installed or not. So you see the Docker is installed now. Okay, so it took some time, but it's okay. So can we check this here, guys, all of you? So Docker client is there or not? So here, Docker, this is the client. Which Docker? Which Docker? This is the client. Which Docker D? This is the daemon. Which container D? This is the container D. And kernel we have. So we have to run this command and I'll teach you that. Docker is running or not? Docker info, and it's not running right now. So what to do in order to run? So enable for every time. Next reboot, start this Docker services. I started it Docker info, and you see that Docker is running now. So this is the things which we have. How many containers running, pause, stop, nothing, image here, nothing. So here, if you want to see that Docker and version. So here you have a community version, server, client, 20 version is got installed. So I installed this Docker and now ready for use. So now, did you understand that, guys, all of you? Oh, so far we understand what is Docker, why do we need it, what is container, how container works, and architecture of Docker, Docker components, and then how to install the Docker and all. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Hello?
No, Rajesh. Good.
Okay. So now, guys, there are two things. Okay, there are two things. Let's prove what is container. That's the one thing. And then another one is container life cycle. Okay. So while proving, you don't need to remember the command because I'm not going to explain it. Okay, I'm not going to explain it. So just see few things. So guys, here I'm going to prove it one of the containers. So I'm creating one container. I'm not explaining the command right now, just proving it. Docker run -t http d, or let's say you create from Ubuntu. So itd Ubuntu. I just said no. I clearly said when I run the image, one image, this all this thing happen, container get created. So one image I'm using, this image is Ubuntu, here official image. Sent to these are the base image actually. So yeah, I got one container, so it will be downloaded. Just wait for a few seconds. Image will be downloaded in the local because the fresh machine I was not having this image. It will not take more than few seconds, so that's be with me. Done, guys. You see that Docker images, sorry, Docker images, Docker container is running or not. This is the container. Okay, I'm not explaining you anything, just let's prove it. So look at my screen. This is my table for the process. See so many processes. You want to see the process table of the container? Docker execute container ID ef-ef. See here, starting with the 0, 1, 2. So many few processes are there. Do you want to see the my system mount? Do you want to see the container mount root file system? See here, both are different. Okay. Do you want to see the network? My IP address is here. My IP address is here 13. You want to see the networking? I think this utility will not be there. Yeah, it's not there. So you can install this at utility. apt get install update first. You are doing in the container, mind it. Remember, my base machine is CentOS. I repeat, my base machine is CentOS, but I'm running the inside a container apt get because the container is Ubuntu. Install net tools. I'm installing inside a container and IPA. It was not there, so I installed it. IP if config. Yeah. So this is the container. This is the IP address of my container.
Thanks for watching. Want to study further? Join our training programs today.